Imagine you're sleeping, and suddenly you wake up in a super strange place, filled with bright lights and colors that seem magical. Out of nowhere, a super powerful woman, like a goddess, appears and says, "Hello, welcome to my world. My name is Lady Nolan." But then, she gets a worried look on her face and says, "Look, there's been a mistake. You're not supposed to be here. Actually, you were summoned by accident." You're like, "Huh? What do you mean? You just welcomed me, and now you're saying it was a mistake?" She explains, "It's like this. There's a spell that calls people from other worlds to come here, but it should only bring specific people. However, for some reason, the spell chose you, even though you weren't on the list. It was like an error, you see." You're completely shocked, and she continues, "Oh, and there's more. This spell is extremely dangerous. The worlds are so different that if people keep using it, everything here could collapse. That's why this spell was banned. But, some people don't follow the rules and did it anyway." Then, she tells you that she saw the spell being activated and tried to stop it, but she didn't have enough time. So, she did what she could to minimize the disaster and brought you to her domain, where you're safe for now. You ask, "And the other people who were summoned? Are they here too?" She shakes her head. "No, they went to the right place, the Empire of Sidonia, where the spell originated. You were the only one who ended up here by accident. Just send me back home." But she gives you a sad look and says, "I can't. I was so furious at the one who cast the spell that I blocked everything. Now, no one can use that spell anymore, and you can't go back either." Drops the bombshell. Now, you're just a soul, like a small, fluffy little orb. You look at yourself and realize you've turned into a tiny, furry puffball, completely without a human body. Frustrated, you say, "So what now? What do I do?" She replies, "Well, you'll have to start a new life here in Midgard. I feel responsible for this, so I'll help you." She suggests sending you to a peaceful place where you'll have a better chance to survive. And on top of that, she promises to give you a blessing, a special power to make up for all this mess. You're confused, and she explains, "Look, this is like those anime stories you must know. I mean, you ended up in a fantasy world full of adventures and opportunities. It might be scary, but it could also be amazing." Then Lady Nolan gets all excited and says, "This is going to be incredible, you'll see. It'll be a crazy adventure." A knot in your stomach. Too many weird things happening at once, right? But she doesn't even acknowledge your worried face and says, "Come on, try opening your status window." You think, "Status window? What's that?" But out of nowhere, as soon as you imagine it, poof, a screen full of information appears right in front of you. He sees that he is now 17 years old, which is a huge change since he was 40 in his past life. And look at that. In the job field, there's nothing written. Then Nolan explains, "Here in Midgard, there's no such thing as a salary or an office job. Professions are more like warrior, mage, knight, thief, or hunter. Oh, and if you prefer something more peaceful, there's potion maker, alchemist, blacksmith, carpenter, things like that." Already tired of fights and trouble, he says, then I want a production job, something more relaxed." Nolan smiles and says, "All right, I'll give you some basic skills to start with." And in the blink of an eye, he gains production skills and some useful tricks for his new life. She even gives him a tip. If you practice and put in effort, you'll unlock a formal job title. It's like leveling up, you know? After that, she sends him straight to the continent of Asgard, where the real adventure will begin. He appears in a super peaceful place, near a lake. Seeing his reflection in the water, he thinks, "Wow, I actually look handsome in this new form." Then, he decides to check what Nolan left him: a bit of food, money, and a knife. He opens the status window again and thinks, if someone finds out I have Nolan's blessing, this could be a problem. And suddenly, he discovers that he can hide his abilities. So, he disguises the blessing and the item box skill, which is like an infinite inventory. As he explores his abilities further, he realizes he has several magic spells at his disposal. Like any true otaku, he feels the urge to test them out. But then he thinks, fire magic? Better not. I could burn down the whole forest. So he starts with earth magic, then wind and water. Seeing the spells in action excites him, and he thinks, damn, this is a real fantasy world. Determined to explore more, he sets off in search of a village. On the way, he finds a piece of wood and uses his appraisal skill to discover that it's treant wood, a super rare and high-quality material used to make staffs, magical items, and even spears. He gets really excited and uses his blacksmith skill to transform the wood into a sturdy spear. Looking around, he notices that the region is full of incredible resources. Could the plants be as well? And of course, he starts gathering every herb he can find. But then, he realizes his backpack won't hold everything. So, he tosses the excess into the item box, which is like a magical chest with unlimited space. Convenient, right? Suddenly, he hears noises and sees a girl running toward him, completely desperate. She hides behind him, and then he notices that she's being chased by a rabbit, but not a normal rabbit, no. It's a giant rabbit with an angry face and sharp teeth. The girl screams, "Watch out! It's carnivorous!" He's like, "Carnivorous? A rabbit?" But there's no time to think. The creature leaps at him, and with his spear in hand, he manages to land a precise strike. The rabbit falls to the ground, and he stands there in shock. I killed it, even though he wanted nothing to do with fights. This victory grants him the title of warrior. He sighs, thinking, just what I needed. But hey, at least he saved the girl, right? The girl thanks him for saving her, and he asks where she's from. She explains that she's from the village of Board and was in the forest gathering medicinal herbs when the giant rabbit appeared. He, a little uncomfortable, asks if he can accompany her back to the village, and she immediately accepts very happily. He lets out a sigh of relief and even smiles a little. But before they leave, she asks, aren't you going to take the horned rabbit? It's a rare delicacy around here. He, feeling a bit embarrassed, remembers the item box and stores the rabbit inside, explaining that the magic space only works with non-living things like animal corpses. The girl is amazed by his ability and praises him. Wow, that's incredible. She then introduces herself. My name is Molly. He responds, nice to meet you, I'm Takumi. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in the Holy Empire of Sidonia, the three humans who are actually summoned are completely lost. Out of nowhere, a cloaked woman appears and says, welcome to a new world, explaining that they have been summoned to use their powers as heroes and save the kingdom. I am Elizabeth, the first empress of the Holy Empire of Sidonia, but her demeanor is so sinister that she looks like she could steal your soul in a dark alley without a second thought. Among the three, a girl named Akane acquires a unique skill called Revelation, granted directly by Lady Nolan. This ability gives her a kind of divine intuition, as if the universe itself is whispering to her, trust your instincts. And of course, her instincts are screaming, run from this woman, she's dangerous. Akane decides not to trust Elizabeth. And who could blame her, right? And you're no longer useful. Back in the village of Board, Molly's parents sincerely thank Takumi for saving their daughter. Her father, Banga, introduces himself as a hunter, while her mother, Marta, gives him a warm smile. Takumi, feeling a bit awkward, asks if he can stay in the village for a while. They immediately agree, saying, there are many medicinal herbs here, and even a mineral mine nearby. He gets excited because that means he'll have materials to work with. Banga introduces him to Boban, the village blacksmith, who is nearby. Takumi thanks everyone for their hospitality, but they warn him there's no inn here. However, they offer to build him a house instead. He gets excited about the offer and immediately accepts. They show him a plot of land where the house will go, and Boban gathers the villagers to start the construction. Takumi decides to help as well, using his earth magic to level the ground. But he doesn't stop there. In a somewhat crazy moment, we see Takumi purposely chewing on poisonous plants. When he gets poisoned, he uses healing magic on himself. It's a painful but effective method to gain resistance to poison and paralysis, as well as to improve his light magic skills. He reflects that, although it's risky and not pleasant at all, it's the fastest way to develop these resistances. And thanks to this insane training, he ends up unlocking purification magic. Just as he's reflecting on his progress, a level 25 armored boar appears huge and menacing. Takumi grabs his spear and knife, ready to defend himself. The boar charges at him and Takumi throws the knife, but the blade bounces off without causing any damage. He, a little awkward, he asks if he can accompany her back to the village, and she immediately accepts very happily. He lets out a sigh of relief and even smiles a little. But before they leave, she asks, aren't you going to take the horned rabbit? It's a very rare delicacy around here. He feels a bit embarrassed. He remembers the item box and stores the rabbit inside, explaining that the magical space only works with non-living things, like animal bodies. The girl is left speechless by his ability and praises him. Wow, that's amazing. Then she introduces herself. My name is Molly. He responds, nice to meet you, I'm Takumi. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in the Holy Empire of Sidonia, the three humans who were truly summoned are completely lost. Out of nowhere, a cloaked woman appears and says, welcome to a new world. She explains that they have been summoned to use their powers as heroes and save the kingdom, but her explanation is so confusing that it leaves them even more lost. Then she reveals herself. I am Elizabeth, Empress of the Holy Empire of Sidonia, but her demeanor is so sinister that it seems like she could suck out your soul in a dark alley without a second thought. Among the three, a girl named Akane receives a unique ability called Revelation, granted directly by Lady Nolan. This ability gives her a kind of divine intuition, as if the universe itself whispers to her, trust your instincts. And of course, her instinct is screaming, run from this woman, she's dangerous. Akane decides not to trust Elizabeth, and who could blame her, right? The Empress gives off the vibe of, I'll use you and discard you when you're no longer useful. Back in Board Village, Molly's parents sincerely thank Takumi for saving their daughter. Her father, Banga, introduces himself as a hunter, and her mother, Marta, gives him a warm smile. Takumi, feeling a bit awkward, asks if he can stay in the village for a while. They immediately agree, saying, there are many medicinal herbs here and even a mineral mine nearby. He gets excited because that means he'll have materials to work with. Banga introduces Boban, the village blacksmith, who is nearby. Takumi thanks everyone for their hospitality, but they warn him there's no inn here. But then they offer, we can build you a house. He gets excited about the offer and accepts immediately. They show him the land where the house will be built, and Boban gathers the villagers to begin construction. Takumi decides to help as well, using his earth magic to level the ground. Oh, but he doesn't stop there. In a rather crazy moment, we see Takumi intentionally chewing on poisonous plants. When he gets poisoned, he uses healing magic on himself. It's a painful but effective method to build resistance to poison and paralysis, as well as improve his light magic skills. He reflects that, although it's risky and unpleasant, it's the fastest way to develop these resistances, and thanks to this insane training, he ends up unlocking purification magic. Just as he's reflecting on his progress, a level 25 armored boar appears huge and menacing. Takumi grabs his spear and knife, ready to defend himself. The boar charges at him, and Takumi throws his knife, but the blade bounces off without causing damage. Desperate, he attacks with his spear, but it shatters into pieces. Cornered, Takumi decides to try magic. He casts Rug Ball and Wing Cutter, but nothing works against the armored boar. Frustrated and out of options, he starts to panic. Suddenly, he notices movement behind him and sees a venomous spider hiding in the shadows. He thinks, great, another problem. But then he realizes the spider is injured. Before he can react, the boar charges again. Takumi braces for impact, but surprisingly, the spider saves the day. It blinds the boar, causing it to miss its attack. Though disoriented, the boar is still a threat, and Takumi has no idea how to defeat it. Then, he has a spark of inspiration. He uses his alchemical decay ability. The spell dissolves the boar from the inside, defeating it once and for all. When the boar falls, Takumi gains close combat skills and battle magic. He is in shock. I just saved myself with crafting magic. Then, he approaches the poisoned spider, which is on the verge of death. Grateful for its help, he says, thank you for saving me, and uses his healing magic to restore its strength. He's about to leave, thinking everything is settled when, plim, a notification appears, saying that he can tame the spider. He hesitates for a moment, but then the spider looks at him with its 8 shiny eyes, full of hope. How could he say no? He asks, do you want to come with me? The spider accepts, and he tames it, creating a telepathic bond between them. He asks if it already has a name, but since it doesn't, he notices a maple leaf pattern on its back and decides to call it Maple. At that moment, the spider evolves into a killer spider, and even its injured leg regenerates. Later, Takumi returns to the village, proudly carrying the giant boar he defeated. The villagers are left speechless, amazed that he killed such a powerful creature on his own. Tamed monster. Banga, surprised, says, taming insect-type monsters? That's nearly impossible. Wanting to change the subject, Takumi suggests preparing the boar for a feast. The villagers are shocked by his generosity, but he just shrugs, happy to share. Soon, the whole village gathers for a big celebration. As they eat, Banga hands Takumi the boar's tusks and hide, explaining that they could be worth a good amount of money in a big city called Bolton. Meanwhile, Maple plays with the village children, winning everyone over with her cuteness. Boban comments, the village has become livelier since you arrived, Takumi. Banga nods, but reflects that Takumi doesn't seem like the kind of person who would stay in a small place forever. Meanwhile, in Midgar, Lady Nolan watches Takumi from a distance, satisfied with how he is adapting. Another supreme being appears beside her and asks, what do you expect from this boy? Nolan pretends not to have any plans, but the other supreme being insists, revealing that she gave Takumi a special body, her blessing, and even sent him a year into the past before, the summoning spell of the Sidonia Empire. She doesn't deny having hidden intentions, but her expression gives her away. She definitely has something bigger in mind for Takumi's future.